Welcome Beyond Emissions podcast, brought to you by Soligent, the largest pure-play solar distributor in the Americas. Welcome to the show. I'm Josh Brum, Energy Storage Manager here at Soligent. You can reach out to us, storage@soligent.net, talking about batteries a lot, but we talk about everything solar, renewable energy, beyond emissions. What does it mean to you to create a world that is beyond emissions? That's exactly what we're doing every single day here in our renewable energy business, especially here at Soligent, your one-stop shop for inverters, racking, solar PV array panels, as well as energy storage, accessories, electrical balance of systems. We have it all available right here at Soligent. Click on the link below to find out more. We have an amazing guest here today, so without further ado, this guy is super busy. He was on one of our most recent Soligent Storage Series webinars, available at the Soligent YouTube channel. Go catch that if you didn't have a chance to catch that earlier. It's all about Enphase Energy Storage Solutions, and Tony Vernetti is a professional. This guy gets on a regular basis with our customers and our teams and does webinars, and he's training people to be their best, to do their best in helping us create this world that is beyond emissions, this emissions-free future. We're so glad to have him on our team as a part of our program here today for the Beyond Emissions podcast. Tony Vernetti from Enphase Energy. Tony, welcome back to the show, my man.
Thank you very much, Josh. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of your podcast and to talk to, your customers and their homeowner, potential homeowner, who are interested in solar and other things that Enphase might have to offer. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, at the end of the day, our business thrives and survives on that homeowner, right? Our installers are who our customers are, but at the end of the day, you, the homeowner, you're the reason why we get up out of bed every single day, trying to figure out ways to innovate and save you money. Enphase, on the verge of so many great innovations. We know all about some amazing past innovations and current innovations. Innovation. Enphase is all about innovation, available right here at Soligent, folks. To find out more about Enphase Energy Solutions, available here at Soligent, click on the link below to find out more. Tony, you've been in the business for quite a while, and Enphase is really all about innovation. Start off the podcast today by introducing yourself for folks who don't know who you are yet, and also as well, Enphase Energy. Why Enphase? Let's start there.
Sure. I'll just give a quick background on myself here. I am from California. I grew up in San Diego, and I've worked in my solar career in California the entire time. My first job was in 2008, selling solar water heating systems for a couple of years and some PV, and then worked for a manufacturer of solar water heating for 2 years doing technical sales and design training for architects and engineers, and then jumped headfirst into selling residential PV back in the time when demand was very high, back in like 2013, 2014, before even we transitioned from NEM to NEM 2.0. And it was a very exciting time to be in solar. It still is a very exciting time. And it's been really interesting to see how things have evolved over the years. And, even with the changes that we've seen to net metering or net billing with the utilities, California still is an excellent market for solar. If you're a homeowner in California, even with the changes to how billing is done, solar and now adding battery storage is still a very exciting, provides a very exciting potential for saving a lot of money, and is a very good investment when you compare it to other ways you could spend your money.
What are you seeing, Tony, for homeowners? What are you seeing? Because someone mentioned to this effect to me the other day, don't even mention your salespeople. Don't even mention NEM 2 versus NEM 3 to them. They don't know anything about it. They're not inside baseball like us day in, day out. They just know they have a big bill and they want to get rid of it and they want to save money. And it kind of made sense to me. From the homeowner's perspective, what do they care about? What are they seeing on their bill? And what can we do about it in the industry, Enphase and Soligent and our installers? What can we do to help the homeowner that's listening to this right now?
Yeah, that's a great question, Josh. And, let's just focus on California for a few minutes here, because that's where the biggest solar market in the country, and that's where the significant change happened recently. For industry professionals, I would encourage you just to, when you're discussing with homeowners, just present the best solution for NEM 3.0 without going too much into the entire history of NEM. Homeowners are not necessarily reading all the news articles that you are about the solar industry. All they know, many homeowners just know that they've got a big electricity bill, and they've heard some things about changes to solar credits and so forth. I would encourage you just to focus on and just go in and say, this is the best solution for the utility rate structure that we have today. Again, don't do a whole history lesson. And the essential thing to convey to them is that the utilities now don't pay much for excess solar during the daytime, but they will pay a handsome price for electricity that you actually feed back to the grid during select times. So this is where Enphase innovation comes into play. The Enphase Energy system is optimized to take advantage of the current rate structure. Our system will charge the battery up during the daytime, so it's completely full, and keep it full until the utilities begin their peak period, and they charge a higher price for electricity in the late afternoon. That's when the battery is going to kick in, and instead of buying electricity from the utility, you use the energy in the battery. That's where actually the biggest source of savings is using the stored energy in the battery instead of paying the very high price from the utility in the evening. And then, as I mentioned, our system is also able to intelligently control exporting power from the battery. This is where it's pretty exciting, and not all battery systems can do this. So during a couple of hours in September from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., the utilities actually will increase the amount they pay for energy to nearly $3, and some utilities over $3 per unit of energy or kilowatt hour. And if you optimize your system, and Enphase is, again, really focused on providing an optimized system, you can export a lot of energy during that period throughout the entire month of September and potentially earn hundreds of dollars in credits. And then you can use those credits in future months to pay for charges. So basically, if we kind of summarize it into maybe a 30-second explanation, the current structure, the current deal with the utilities means that in order to reduce your bill by a very high percentage, say 80 to 90%, you need to have a combination of solar and a battery system now. And if you do that and with an Enphase system and it's optimized, then you'll have a payback period of probably somewhere in the range of 5 to 7 years. Of course, it depends on how complex your project is, what type of roof you have. But the payback is relatively short. The ROI is still in the range of 15 to 20%, or maybe even higher in some cases. And yeah, it's overall still an excellent investment. It's an excellent time to go solar and storage in California.
Yeah, and where else in the world can you take your money and get 15% ROI, Tony? Where else? I mean, what, high interest savings, maybe
if
5?
If you get lucky in the stock market, perhaps, but as far as like comparable low risk, relatively low risk investments, there really is nothing that I know of out there that has the risk profile of solar and such a high ROI.
Yeah. If you're throwing it in the stock market, there could be a downturn tomorrow. But from what the physics are showing us, the sun is still going to be there tomorrow. I love your Enphase LinkedIn post I saw a couple days ago. It was very witty. It was a picture of the sun, and the sun had a little blurb coming out saying, "Hey, I'm kind of a big deal," or something like that. Like it's still going to keep on shining, hopefully, right?
The sun's going to keep on shining, and utility rates are going to keep on going up. Those are a couple of things that we know for sure.
Tony Vernetti from Enphase Energy, our special guest today at the Beyond Emissions podcast by Soligent. Homeowners, I know you're listening right now. Smart homeowners are listening right now. Enphase.com /homeowners. Enphase.com /homeowners. Go there today. Critical updates, Enphase app, microinverters, batteries, EV chargers, connected appliances. Find an installer, design your system, Energy 101, energy stories, so you can hear actual testimonials from real people who have benefited from Enphase Energy's technology. Available right here at Soligent. Click on the link below to find out more. Tony, we've got a lot to go into today. You just heard me read off the litany of amazing benefits that homeowners can get by going to Enphase Energy for their solutions available here at Soligent. You gave us a great synopsis of how they can save on their bill. You talked about the ability to magically almost, and it sounds like magic, really. I mean, like Star Trek. The ability to have brains almost inside of the system to know when to charge and when to discharge. You showed our team the other day a tool that you're providing for installers, Enphase installers, called SolarGraph. And it really was interesting to see. Is that how this is all accomplished with the brains inside of the Enphase system, that IQ, if you will? Is that all happening because of that SolarGraph that you showed us the other day, where you're able to input the different variables? Walk our listeners, the homeowners who are listening right now, through that. What is that tool, and how does that work inside of the Enphase system? How does it have the brains to know what to do and when to do it? Very cool.
Yeah, so SolarGraph is a solar and energy storage system design software. It's a software tool that's used by solar professionals when they are designing the solar array on your roof. They use the tool to estimate how much energy that system is going to produce. It's very intelligent. It takes into account many different factors, like the orientation of the solar panels, the weather patterns, the microclimate of that installation, as that can vary even just by a few miles, depending on certain parts, where some parts of the country are more sensitive than others to those kinds of changes. But essentially, what's unique about SolarGraph is that it's owned by Enphase Energy. This company, the manufacturer of our solar and battery systems. So we're all in sync. Our SolarGraph software team and our product team are in sync, so that when somebody uses SolarGraph to actually design an Enphase system, the algorithm, if you will, or the intelligence that goes into estimating how that system is going to perform, and therefore how much money it's going to save a customer, by taking in all the many different factors that go into it. Not just, where that system is located, but also the energy consumption patterns of that homeowner can also have an impact. What time of day you tend to use more energy has a big impact. So SolarGraph is able to take all these inputs and really accurately model or simulate how the system is going to perform, and ultimately how much money it's going to save the homeowner. So the advantage to working with a solar company that is on board with Enphase, not just from the product perspective, but also using SolarGraph, is that they're going to provide you much more accurate solar proposals in terms of how much money that system's going to save you. And of course, that's what you want, right? If you are making an investment in solar based on a 6-year payback and 20% ROI, when you have the system installed in the real world, you want those numbers to be realized. You want that to happen. And so the Enphase combination of our SolarGraph design proposal, or design software, and an Enphase Energy system that uses the same algorithms to operate, homeowners can have that kind of peace of mind. The system is going to save them what they expect.
And when you look at SolarGraph, as you're able to input so many different variables. Again, Tony Vernetti from Enphase Energy here with us at the Beyond Emissions podcast by Soligent. Find out more. Click on the link below to learn more about Enphase Energy Solutions, available right here at Soligent. Thank you so much for being here, Tony. The many variables that are inputted into the SolarGraph software utilized by the Enphase installer, helping our homeowners listening to this advice right now. Thanks again, folks, for listening. The inputted variables, they vary, but it's interesting. I think you were able to determine what the rate structure that the customer was on, kind of their billing
Right.
profile. Talk a little bit about that. What information do they need to provide the installer that they're working with, so the installer can input the right stuff in there, the right variables?
Well, in an ideal world, you would provide the installer with a special file, which you can get from your utility. So first thing you'd have to do is, set up or register with your utility so that you can log in online, and then you can download what's called a green button data file. It's a long term for basically a data file about your energy consumption. And what's really great about having that green button data file is that it informs the solar design software about when energy is being used historically in the home. And the reason why that's important is if you think about it, solar is producing energy at its highest level during the middle of the day. But when do we use most of our energy in general? It's not in the middle of the day. Typically, during the middle of the day, we may be working from home, looking at our computer, or it may be an empty household with everyone at work and at school. So energy use during the daytime is actually usually pretty low. But if you've got a solar system that's sized appropriately to produce enough energy for your home on an annual basis, it's going to produce a lot of excess during the middle of the day. So that's when the battery comes into play. We want to store that excess energy in the battery and use it later. But just going back to energy consumption patterns, if you are a work-from-home couple, or say a retired couple that does stay home for the most part and run appliances and use more energy during the middle of the day when the solar system's producing, then you would actually need a smaller battery than somebody who used a lot less energy during the day and more energy in the evening. So this is important in terms of right-sizing the battery. And that's another, I'm just sort of jumping around here, but that's another advantage of the Enphase system is that our battery building blocks are relatively small. They start at just 3.3 kilowatt hours. If you're not an energy geek like us, that probably doesn't mean anything to you. But it's a relatively small building block, and with Enphase, you can basically bolt a number of these batteries together to get whatever the perfect amount of energy storage capacity or the right size of that fuel tank, so to speak, for your specific needs. Other companies offer much larger building blocks of either 10 or 13 kilowatt hours or even larger. That can sometimes result in you basically overbuying in terms of energy storage capacity. And with the complicated NEM3 rates and all this, it's ideally, for the best ROI and the shortest payback period, you're going to get that perfectly sized battery and not overbuy capacity that's not going to be used.
Oh, I love that you mentioned that, Tony. Tony Vernetti again with us, Enphase Energy, here at the Beyond Emissions by Soligent podcast. Thanks for listening, folks. Tony, not all customers are going to benefit best by having batteries for battery backup. Some customers have very few, if any, outages whatsoever, and they only might need the battery to be used as a tool to increase their ROI on their solar, right? Go into that. There's a package with a battery and a package with a battery. They both have a battery, but the functionality on one and the affordability on one versus the other really depends on the need of the customer. Do they have outages or don't they? They all need to save on their solar, but there's a couple different versions available, right? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And this is something that takes, I think, sometimes a couple conversations with homeowners to help them understand that there are more than one option. There's more than one option available now with battery systems. So historically, the main motivator for getting a battery was backup power, right? In case if there was a power outage, again, in California, which many of your customers are probably located, over the past several years, we've had a history of severe power outages, mostly fire-related, fire prevention-related, I should say. So anyone that's suffered through a 2 or 3 day power outage, or in some cases a week or 2 week power outage, knows that it has a big impact on the family, and it's a very tough thing to deal with. So again, backup power was the motivator historically. You could also save some money if you had a backup power system by using that energy in the battery in the evening but that was a relatively small benefit. It was just sort of like the cherry on top of the cake. But now with NEM 3.0, having a battery on the system connected to the solar system to save energy is critical to maximizing savings and to reducing your bill by over 80%. But what people sometimes don't quite understand is that when you add a battery to a solar system, you don't necessarily have to add all this extra equipment and all this extra labor to make it provide backup power. Just by adding a battery to a solar system, simply for the opportunity to save energy and use that energy during expensive periods, simply basically use that battery as a tool to save money without backup power is the lowest cost way to, again, add that capability to your system and maximize your electricity bill reduction. And the financial benefits of short payback period and ROI are all going to be better with a simpler, lower cost grid-tied battery system that doesn't do backup. That being said, if you are a customer that wants the best of both worlds, you do want to maximize your savings with the use of a battery, and you also want backup power, then of course Enphase provides that solution as well with battery sizes anywhere from, as I mentioned, 3.3 kilowatt hours all the way up to 80 kilowatt hours for very large homes or large energy consumers.
Let's assume that I'm a homeowner. The salesperson came to me with these options, the lesser costly upfront option of having a battery to utilize for bill offset and get ROI for my solar, but no battery backup capability. I told the salesperson in this hypothetical pretend situation that I never have an outage. I'm not worried about that. I just want to save money on my bill. Great. Here's that option. They install it, and then suddenly there starts being these rolling blackouts in my area. There starts being more outages than there used to be. Darn it, I have a battery on the wall and I can't use it for an outage because I didn't sign up for that version. Am I stuck with that? Or is there the flexibility to throw in a system controller, have the installer come and retrofit it to make that available for battery backup? Is a retrofit later on possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So the components that are installed for a grid-tied battery or a money-saving battery, if you will, are the exact same components that would be used for a backup power system. You would also just need to add a couple of additional components. Your designer would have to figure out exactly what, but the main thing would be what we call a system controller. It's our smart switch, which instantly disconnects the home from the utility grid during an outage so that the solar and battery system can operate safely and not send any power back to the utility grid. So in summary, any systems installed without backup capability with the addition of one or two components can be converted or retrofitted to be a backup power system. So I anticipate many people will be signing up. If you look at other states like Hawaii, which transitions to a similar kind of utility compensation structure that we have in California many years ago. In Hawaii, I think the attach rate for batteries, meaning like solar systems that are sold with batteries compared to without, is something like 80% or 90%. Nearly all homeowners get batteries in Hawaii. So we expect that to be the same, just become the norm in California. And many people are just going to get non-backup systems initially because, financially that's the most economical way to go about it. But as we've seen, as I mentioned over the past few years, our utility grid is being challenged. And the risk of fire in California seems to be increasing every year. So having resilience and backup power capability, I think the interest in that and the demand for that is just going to continue to increase as the years go forward as well.
Homeowners.
And so we'll see a lot of those customers convert their systems to backup power. Absolutely.
Homeowners listening right now, you keyed in on a word. You said fires. And immediately when people think of lithium batteries, they hear fires. They see the fire that the fire department just lets burn out because they can't do anything about it. They just have to let it burn. Been seeing a lot of these in the news lately. Homeowners, they're concerned about the safety of what they're putting in their home for their families and, their kids and grandkids. They want to make sure that it's safe, that it's not going to, require some special, extinguisher system. And, the reality though, I'm jesting a bit. It's not funny, but I'm kind of mocking a little bit the fact that everybody thinks, lithium ion is the same. Homeowners, join us in this educational process. There's a difference in lithium iron phosphate versus nickel manganese cobalt, which is every single lithium battery fire story I've ever read. It doesn't mean that it's not possible for other chemistries to experience, danger. We're dealing with electricity, right? But at the end of the day, every single fire story I've ever read about a battery chemistry turned out to be a nickel manganese cobalt chemistry. Lithium iron phosphate is the safe chemistry that Enphase uses. There's a difference. Not all lithium is the same. Talk about that for our homeowner. Put their mind at ease from a safety standpoint, Tony.
Sure. That's a great point to bring up, Josh. As you mentioned, there are a few different kind of categories or types of lithium-ion batteries. I think people tend to kind of lump them all together and think they're all the same, but there are distinct differences. The chemistry that most of our competitors use is a lithium-ion battery. The chemistry, if you want to get really geeky, is nickel manganese cobalt, or NMC. It's preferred for electric vehicles because it's more energy dense, which, of course, when you're rolling that battery around and taking it with you everywhere you go, that's a nice feature. But the downside is that flaws in manufacturing those cells or damage to the cell, like physical damage from a puncture or a collision with a car, can cause what's called thermal runaway, where there's essentially an uncontrolled chemical reaction that results in the batteries heating up so much that they catch on fire, and the fire is very difficult to extinguish. As you mentioned, typically firefighters just stand back and make sure there's no lives at risk and then just let it burn. That's just a little bit of background on that particular chemistry. When we developed our battery, our engineer had a personal experience with a toy basically catching on fire in his garage, and he thought, we're not going to use the riskier lithium chemistry. We're going to use a much safer chemistry called lithium iron phosphate, iron as in the metal, abbreviated LFP. So LFP chemistry is safer from the perspective that it doesn't experience the same kind of thermal runaway if it's damaged or if it's overheated. It's not going to be a source of its own fire. And that is, I think, a really important difference to homeowners. Just knowing that this big piece of technology you're installing on the side of your home or inside your garage is not going to be the cause of a fire. Another couple of advantages on that note, like all battery systems have some sort of cooling system. It could be very simple, it could be more complex. The batteries that have that higher risk that I mentioned earlier tend to have very complicated cooling systems. They'll have pumps that move liquid coolant around the battery. They'll have fans that blow warm air or blow air across a radiator type device to help cool the battery. Those are all mechanical components that are added to the battery just for safety that could potentially fail and cause the battery to stop working and have to potentially be replaced. So again, our engineers, when they're looking at the different options, they thought LFP, great chemistry, not just from a safety standpoint, but it also simplifies our cooling system. Our cooling system is so simple, it's basically a heat sink. It's a bunch of metal fingers or fans on the outside of the battery that warm up when the battery is going through high rates of charge or discharge. And that heat sink just warms up and warm air rises out of the top of the battery. There are no mechanical parts that could fail. And that's kind of leading me to another benefit. Again, Josh, thanks. Forgive me for just jumping around, but they're all these different benefits are kind of interconnected, right? The benefit I wanted to bring up is our warranty. The industry standard warranty for batteries is about 10 years. Enphase offers a 15-year warranty with up to 6,000 cycles for our newest battery, the 5P, as well as for any of the previous generation batteries installed after July 1st. And 15 years or 6,000 cycles is really excellent compared to what else is out there on the market. 6,000 cycles, to put that in perspective, if you completely drained and refilled your battery every single day, it would take over 15 years to reach 6,000 cycles.
That's right. That's right. If you look at one cycle per day, folks, forgive me for being the math nerd, but 6,000 divided by 365, assuming one cycle per day, you're at a full charge, you discharge it down all the way down, and you charge it back up again. That's one life cycle. So 6,000 cycles divided by 365, that's one cycle per day, one full charge and discharge per day, which is normal in how we design these systems. That's 16.43 years of life, at which the battery would be at about 70% of its original capacity. But that's maximum. We're talking warranty. This is a warranty discussion. 6,000 cycles, 15 years. The reality is lithium iron phosphate gets nearly 40 to 50% more life expectancy than the NMC, nickel manganese cobalt chemistry, the ones used in like Tesla and stuff like that. Like that chemistry gets about 40 to 50% fewer life cycles, not only the safety difference, but also longevity. So if he's being very conservative, folks. If you take from a warranty standpoint, yes, 15 years or 16.43 years, which is 6,000 cycles. That's a warranty speak. But if we're talking capability of the chemistry of sized at 80% depth of discharge, what does that mean? Real quick, take a little sidebar real quick, Tony, if you don't mind. Tony Vernetti from Enphase Energy with us here at the Beyond Emissions podcast. Folks, if you basically, instead of going the maximum of using 90 to 100% of all the energy in the battery every single cycle, you could actually oversize the battery 20% larger than your daily energy need. That will ensure the battery doesn't discharge past 80% depth of discharge daily. It basically leaves 20% alone in the battery untouched every day. You're only using 80% of it every cycle. If that's done, again, by oversizing the battery 20% larger than the customer's daily usage, you're going to get closer to about 8,000 cycles, not 6,000. 8,000 divided by 365, 21.91 years of life. That matches right up with that 25-ish year life expectancy in that ballpark that the customer's having from a long-term perspective. Again, why is this possible? Because lithium iron phosphate is not only safer, it's a better return on investment for your customer, giving you more value with more longevity and more life cycles. Right, Tony?
Yeah, great points that you make, Josh. We've all had devices that their capacity decreases significantly after the first year or two, right? Cell phones used to seem to have half their capacity after just a year or two. Technology's improved a lot, and as you mentioned, with lithium iron phosphate chemistry, even if you're heavily using that battery, draining it and refilling it every single day, it's going to hold on to its storage capacity, its ability to store energy much better than the competing battery technology NMC. Yeah, so for daily use over long periods of time, 10 to 15 years, et cetera, it really is the best chemistry available.
Now, a big difference with Enphase Energy is usually, because the battery's DC. All batteries are DC. That's direct current. They're not AC, alternating current, which is the electricity that comes out of your wall. But Enphase Energy, available at Soligent, click on the link below, has a unique technology for their energy storage that ties in some of the advantages that they get from the microinverters, turning the DC from the solar panels instantly into AC power, increasing some benefits. What are those benefits, by the way? And talk a little bit about that. Besides the fact, and go into it, there is the fact that each battery has its own microinverter at the battery level, which means that if you have a failure, it doesn't take down the whole system. That's obviously an advantage. Talk about that. But just from a conceptual standpoint, for our homeowners, why is it an advantage to have that AC power right at the panel with the IQ microinverters? And why is that an advantage coming from the battery system as well? The microinverters, the AC power versus DC, 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 and then to a string inverter or something like that.
Yeah. Great question, Josh. So Enphase historically has always been about the concept of distributed architecture. And the reason for that is because early on in the solar industry, most solar systems just had a single inverter, sometimes called a string inverter or central inverter. And in the early days, and even still today, their life expectancy was much shorter than solar panels themselves. Solar panels, for as long as I've been in solar, for 15 years or so, have had 25 or even 30-year warranties, because there's really very little that can go wrong with a solar panel. The inverter itself is the workhorse. It's sometimes taking high voltage electricity and converting that to AC electricity. It generates a lot of heat, a lot of expansion and contraction, and string inverters historically would only last around 10 years before they failed. Now that's improved in time, but they still are kind of a weak point in the system. So when Enphase developed its microinverter system, obviously they're designed to go underneath the solar panels, so they were designed to last as long as solar panels. That's why they've had a 25-year warranty for nearly the entire history of the products, I think going back to 2009 or so. So microinverters are basically built to a much higher standard compared to string inverters. They go through severe testing, severe life cycle testing, where we heat them up to extreme temperatures and cool them down over and over and over again, all the while feeding power into the microinverter like it's operating in the real world. Because we've done so much testing and gotten so much feedback from the millions of inverters that we have installed out there in the world, our 8th generation of microinverter, which is what we're on right now with the IQ 8 series, is the most reliable we've ever manufactured. So the point there is not just the reliability of our microinverters kind of on their own, but when they're integrated into a system, you've got multiple microinverters in that system. So if there does, in the off chance, happen to be a failure of one microinverter in an Enphase system, it doesn't take the whole system out. All it does is reduce the power output temporarily until that unit can be replaced. Contrast that with string inverter systems. If the string inverter fails, or I should say when the string inverter fails, because they typically have 12-year warranties, or 10 to 12, or sometimes 15, when it goes out, the whole system is out of commission. And that can mean potentially weeks or months of time going by before the homeowner realizes that their system's not producing, and they're paying through the nose for utility energy. It's also an inconvenience, obviously, to have to deal with contacting your installer. If it was installed 10 years ago, you got to dig through your paperwork to try to find out who they are and get that equipment serviced. Another advantage, and we're going to get a little bit technical here, is that the Enphase microinverters are capable of forming a microgrid. So this applies specifically to backup power systems with a battery. And what's really cool about that is that if there's a scenario where there's a multiple-day power outage, think about the public safety power shutoffs in California due to wildfire risk, 5-day or 10-day power outage. With the Enphase system, the solar system can actually turn on itself and form the microgrid and provide backup power without the help of the battery. The typical AC coupled system out there, I'm not going to talk about brands, but other popular AC coupled systems similar to Enphase have a significant flaw in this regard. And that means that if the battery system is drained down to such a low level that it 2% or less, it's not able to turn on. And if it can't turn on, then the solar can't turn on and start working too. So a very common problem for customers with those types of batteries during long power outages is that the battery will be completely drained overnight, just inadvertently. Customers don't quite realize how much electricity they can use. They drain their battery down, and the next day, the battery is so low that it's not capable of starting up that microgrid and allowing the solar system to produce power. So imagine that you spent $30,000 on a battery backup system, and the day after the power outage begins, your system is dead in the water and can't provide power to your home. You'd be super disappointed, right?
Yeah.
With the Enphase system, I'll just review kind of how it works. The Enphase system, even if the battery is completely depleted, accidentally, inadvertently, the next day, if and when the sun comes out, the solar microinverters, so not the battery, the solar microinverters by themselves can start that microgrid and provide backup power to the home, and then wake up that battery and recharge it to help you get through that multiple-day power outage.
Amazing technology. innovation. Enphase, available at Soligent. Tony Vernetti with us here at the Beyond Emissions podcast. This is awesome. So awesome. Learning. This is how you make the best decisions, homeowners. This is how you know which way to go, is by educating yourself. And that's what we're trying to do, empowering you here at the Beyond Emissions podcast. Speaking of innovation and technology, especially in California, mandate coming up, I think 2035, only electrical vehicles are going to be allowed to be sold. Who knows if that's going to remain the case? I don't know. But it's seeming, just from a market standpoint, more market share going to electrical vehicles, more electrical vehicles being offered by different EV manufacturers than ever before. And the grid, the infrastructure, not necessarily ready for it. So having distributed energy at the localized level in your home, energy storage as well, EV charging solutions coming soon from Enphase, available right here at Soligent. Want to give us a sneak peek about what's going on behind the curtain there?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually a product. So Enphase we've offered electric vehicle chargers for a couple of years now, but they were not networked or Wi-Fi enabled chargers. So what's different about this new generation that's coming out, called the IQ EV Charger, coming out next month, is that it's connected via Wi-Fi to the system. Now, we're not the first company to do this, but what's unique about Enphase is that we have a complete energy management system from a hardware and software perspective. So with Enphase, as we mentioned, you could have solar and a battery system. You could also potentially integrate an additional power source to that, like a generator, or in the future, a fuel cell. You can also integrate a load control device, which can determine whether or not certain electrical loads are allowed to have power, because that provides added resilience and kind of added kind of durability or performance of the system. And so the reason I bring this up is because the IQ EV Charger is now going to be fully integrated into that energy management system from Enphase, which means that the power output of that charger can be controlled so that you can charge your car only with excess solar instead of charging from the grid. So if you want to be as green as possible and minimize your carbon footprint, that's the best way to do it. And the way that works basically is during the daytime, the system knows exactly how much excess solar there is, meaning how much the solar system's producing above and beyond what the home is using. And that excess will go to charge the vehicle. Other systems, for the most part, just charge based on a schedule. So as soon as the off-peak or the lowest cost period begins, they'll start charging your car. But that's likely to be during the middle of the night, so you're charging from dirty grid energy, when with the Enphase system, you could charge your car only from clean energy during the day. That's just one example of one of the features. But, there are a lot of different options out there with electric vehicles and electric car chargers. With the IQ EV Charger, Enphase wants to be able to provide a solution that is going to maximize savings for the customer, as well as maximize their carbon offset as well. And we also offer more charge rates or different powers of charging than most of our competitors as well. With the Enphase system, you can charge it up to about 15 kilowatts of power, which is a ton. If your vehicle can accept that amount of power, and there's some popular new cars like the F-150 Lightning and the Lucid, for example, they can charge at very high rates. So with an Enphase charger that's sized right, you can charge your car much faster than using a slower charger from kind of one of our competitors that offers those lower charge rates.
Now, I'm curious, batteries, you got your stationary batteries, your Enphase batteries that are there in the home, and you've got your battery that's in the vehicle. Is there some energy besides PV array and blended from the grid at opportune times to charge the vehicle? Is there some of that actually coming from the battery system? Because generally speaking, I've always heard you don't charge a battery with a battery. This is comprehensive, like you're discussing, right?
Yes, absolutely. So because there is occasionally a need to charge your vehicle with your system when you're off grid during a power outage, our IQ battery is going to offer that option. It's not going to be by default, because of the obvious. Or maybe if you don't know battery sizes very well, maybe not that obvious, but electric vehicle batteries tend to be much, much larger than a home battery system. Electric vehicle batteries very commonly have capacities of around 100 kilowatt hours or even higher, whereas home battery systems are only about 20 kilowatt hours on average. But again, with our system, if there's a power outage, the IQ EV Charger is going to not charge automatically, but you can go into the Enphase app and you can essentially turn it on to trickle charge your vehicle at a lower rate and add some miles to your vehicle in those times when you need to add a little bit of capacity in order to get to the market and back. So it is customizable and controllable.
Oh, so like the sun is shining and there's an outage and you still have juice in your vehicle to get around town, basically, from the homeowners, in layman's terms, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you touched on something else about microinverters. When the solar is shining, when the sun is shining and solar is producing electricity, you have the full power of the solar plus the power of the battery available with an Enphase system. With string inverter systems that use a single inverter for both solar and battery, the output of power is limited to whatever that inverter model is rated for. So you're not able to utilize all of the solar power and battery power as you would be able to with an Enphase system with AC architecture. So that, in terms of charging your electric vehicle, there's a benefit there because you have a lot more power available when the sun is shining. And during a power outage, that could be very useful. Use all that excess solar power to charge your vehicle and maintain your home battery at a full level instead of depleting it. That makes sense.
How exciting. How exciting. We can actually help consumers, homeowners. This is amazing. To empower them to actually be independent, to own their power. Oh, virtual power plants. I don't know if this is something that we're prepared to discuss at this time, but I did see that the CEC in California the other day approved VPP, virtual power plants for residential. It could get I mean, it could be lucrative. I was going to say ludicrous. Sorry.
Ludicrously lucrative.
Exactly. You get where I'm going. That ROI number, that could change the game for people, right? If they take advantage of that VPP, because we're talking at opportune times, not making 8 cents, not making, 30 cents, but potentially making several dollars per kilowatt hour, right? VPP.
Well, it does vary a lot, Josh. The way that virtual power plants or grid services, as it's sometimes called, how they work varies depending on the utility, the location in the country. But we have a whole department at Enphase that's dedicated to grid services and VPPs. And essentially, whenever utilities are offering this as an option, and in every case that I know of, they compensate customers with either a rebate, upfront rebate, or an ongoing kind of payment for using electricity from your battery. The utilities benefiting from the batteries being involved in the utility grid, and the battery owners are getting compensated for that energy. So yeah, just to step back a minute to explain what this is. The utilities, when we were talking about NEM 3.0 and very high rates utilities have to pay during, or the high amount of credit utilities are willing to give customers in September, for example, that's because when the utility grid is under the most strain, namely in these hot months of the year when a lot of businesses and homeowners have their air conditioning cranked up, the grid is under stress and they need to purchase electricity from very, very expensive temporary power sources called peaker power plants. And that's why literally they'll give you $3 per kilowatt hour to support the grid because it costs them that much to turn on these peaker plants. So that's one of the reasons why virtual power plants are really popping up all over the place, because utilities acknowledge there's a lot of battery capacity out there that's installed on people's homes and businesses. And they want to be able to tap into all those batteries in order to save money. So again, it's a sort of I scratch your back, you scratch my back scenario where the utilities benefit from being connected to these battery systems and being able to trigger them to discharge their energy to the home and even back to the utility. And that really helps them avoid having to pay extremely high prices for these peaker plants to turn on and provide electricity.
Under a virtual power plant scenario, are they able to just do this on a regular basis? Does it happen every day? What's the frequency like as far as how often are they going to be borrowing the power or buying the power from a homeowner's battery system that is engaged with the VPP program?
Yeah, that really varies from program to program. And I don't have the numbers at my fingertips here, but I do know that with some programs, it's on a very regular basis. For example, like in places where there's like very high demand from air conditioning that's straining the grid, perhaps every day from, say, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., your battery will discharge. In others, it's only going to be occasional when there's a real need for it. So in general, the more the utility wants to use your battery, the more they're going to compensate you for it. So, as soon as we learn more about the programs that are going to be coming available, like whenever these programs are launched, actually we do educational webinars that I help facilitate. And if you look on our website, I think you might have already mentioned this, Josh, but there's a page on our website about grid services where we actually list where grid services are available from Enphase and from different utilities around the country.
Very cool. So folks, go to
Enphase. If you go to the installers tab, sorry, Josh.
Yeah, go for it.
You mentioned there's a homeowners tab and all the information there for homeowners, and under installers, there's a grid services link.
Got it.
With more information about VPPs around the country.
So homeowners, where he's referring to is enphase.com/installers. You can go there and let's see here. Where did you say it was going to be? Grid services.
Yeah, so
there it is.
Installers and grid services, and you'll see that we currently have programs in Arizona, Connecticut, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Vermont, New York, and Texas.
And California is just around the corner, folks. I saw the news report the other day that the CEC just approved it. So wow. That's an opportunity to really pay for that battery system. And now, do you still have the ability to have some of it for your own outage? Is there a pad in there? Or are they
Absolutely,
just taking it all?
So all of these programs, from my understanding, they all allow you to have set what we call a reserve capacity for your battery, so that the utility, when they need the energy, they can't completely drain your battery. You can set. It might be in part of the agreement with the utility what that amount is, but typically it's something like 20% or 30% of the battery which the utility can't touch. Once the battery gets down to that 30% level, it'll stop discharging to the loads, so that you as a homeowner can rest assured that if there's an unexpected power outage that happens, you will have at least a partially full battery to power your essential appliances like your fridge through the night. Now, and as I mentioned with the Enphase system, if the battery does get depleted because it's already low, the Enphase system can restart the battery the next day and get it charged up again.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. This is a really great opportunity to increase that ROI, and highly suggest, folks, that you reach out, storage@soligent.net. Contact me. We can connect you with an Enphase installer. 15-year warranty. That's an industry-leading warranty. And before we go, you've learned so much today. I've learned so much today because of Tony Vernetti being willing to share his time with us. Tony, you do this all the time. You're so selfless in offering your help. Thank you very much for your educational expertise in offering this learning opportunity for us today. We appreciate it. Before we go, I've learned a lot today. Go to enphase.com, folks, /homeowners, enphase.com/homeowners. Email me, storage@soligent.net. Find out more about Enphase Energy Solutions and energy storage solutions from Enphase. Available right here at Soligent. Click on the link below. Want to touch on one more thing before we go, Tony? You have a new 5P battery that I know we just placed a big order for 5P batteries just the other day. So we're going to have 5P IQ batteries in stock at Soligent. There's an advantage to the 5P. I hate to sound like Tim the Toolman Taylor, more power, right? Power, power, Really though, no joke, folks. You can power what you want to power, what you need to power. The new Enphase 5Ps are superior in that. Talk a little bit about the new Enphase 5P batteries available at Soligent.
Sure. So the new Enphase IQ Battery 5P, when we talk about batteries, we're usually talking about how much capacity they have in terms of storing energy. The names often indicate that, like our IQ Battery 10 is 10 kilowatt hours. The 5P is 5 kilowatt hours. But an equally important characteristic of the battery is how much power it can output at a moment in time. And the reason that's important is because there's certain types of appliances that we have that demand a lot more power than others. And if you're backing up your home, if you're in backup and the grid is out, if your battery can't supply the juice that appliance needs, it can kind of cause a collapse of the whole system and everything shuts down. We really want to avoid that. So when we developed this new battery, we ensured that it had a significantly higher level of power output than the previous generation, so that for those customers that are backing up those certain kinds of things like air conditioners that can cause collapses, that the 5P would be able to handle those very effectively. And just to keep it in real simple terms, the power output of a battery system with the 5P has twice the power of our previous generation for the same amount of capacity. And for starting appliances that need a lot of power for 1 or 2 seconds when they first start up, the 5P has 2.7, so nearly 3 times the amount of startup capability as the previous generation. So it really is ideal for starting big appliances and typically for whole home backup scenarios where all the loads in the home are being backed up. The 5P is an ideal battery as well.
Yeah, there's a reason why they made it, folks. Feedback from you, really, right? I mean, you've really got your ear close to the ground, and you're listening to customers and taking their feedback at Enphase, right?
That's right. Well, we listen to our installers, we listen to homeowners, and really try to produce the products that meet the demands of the market, what people want to get out of our products. And on top of that, just provide the best customer support that we can as well. That's another thing that Enphase is very proud of.
I experience it with you first.
Answering the phone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I actually call Tony and he answers. I actually text him and he replies. I actually email him and he gets back to me. That's not always the case these days.
I'm glad to hear that's rare.
It is rare. It sucks that it's rare. I mean, we're not like that. We get back to you here at Soligent. Enphase, you get back to us. But in business nowadays, there's a lot of day or two later, someone calls you back and they don't even say, hey, sorry, I didn't get back to you right away or anything like that. Just no sense of urgency. My wife and I, we talk about it all the time when we're wanting to get work done at the house or whatever, or we need something done or fixed, the RV fixed, whatever it might be. Yep. And we call the technician or we call the company to take care of it. We don't get a response. We don't, we'll get back to you. We'll be there at 11. They show up at 3. They don't even say why they're late. We live in a world where it's not, I grew up, I'm 46. I grew up, in an era raised by my parents and grandparents. My grandparents, were from World War II. So manners, common courtesy, right? And, getting back to people. You're going to love this, folks. Working with Enphase Energy, they get back to you. Well,
thank you very much, Josh. I appreciate that.
Well,
and on that note, to add a little humor, I have an appointment with somebody right now that I've got to get to and want to keep my commitment to that customer. So it's been a pleasure joining you. And I hope your homeowners and your installers learned some valuable information today.
Oh, I did as well. Tony Vernetti from Enphase Energy. Tony, tell our listeners how they can reach out to you if they'd like to do so directly.
All right. Take care.
You can reach out to Tony Vernetti. I don't think he heard me there, folks. He had to run. You can reach out to Tony Vernetti. Let me double check this. That would be A. Vernetti, Averenetti at EnphaseEnergy.com, or reach out to me directly, storage@soligent.net, and we'll connect you directly with Mr. Vernetti over at Enphase Energy. If you'd like to learn more, just click on the link below. Also, go to the Soligent YouTube channel for Tony's most recent webinar that he did, providing more education along these lines. Excited to do this every single week with you. Empowering you to make the right decisions as it pertains to your energy security, as well as your financial security, because energy prices are going up, but the sun is going to keep on shining. So take advantage of these great new technologies. Enphase Energy available right here at Soligent. Click on the link to find out more, and email me, storage@soligent.net. I am Josh Brum, Energy Storage Manager here at Soligent. Soligent, the largest pure-play solar distributor in the Americas. You're listening to the Beyond Emissions podcast.
We at Soligent are incredibly excited to announce our partnership with Give Power. Well, we wouldn't be here today talking to you about Give Power if it wasn't for our partners, LoanPal. They've been with Give Power since the beginning. Their contribution has given water and light to countless people across the globe. We are truly inspired by LoanPal's dedication to the cause. Something LoanPal said really strikes a chord regarding Give Power, that this is something that's more than money. It's what makes making money more worthwhile. In a lot of ways, that's synonymous with what we're doing here at Soligent.
Here's how you can help.
What we've decided to do is compound LoanPal's contribution by donating to Give Power on every order paid via our direct pay program through LoanPal. That's right. Every time your company uses your LoanPal portal to pay Soligent for material, 5 people get clean drinking water for a full year.
Together we're stronger.
Together, we can choose to be extraordinary by giving to people who live outside our reach. To us, this means a lot.
Soligent's purpose meets Give Power's mission. Join the impact. Soligent, Solar Engine. SolarEngineSolutions.com. Go there to find out more.